So I just recorded, I'd say, an hour-long video breaking down the video that we're going to be doing today. And I don't want you guys to sit through an hour-long video, and I'm pretty sure you guys don't want to either. So we're going to break this thing down way faster than an hour now. First things first, if you don't know who I am, my name is Philip Benz with Benz Productions. I'm a wedding filmmaker based out of Greenville, North Carolina. I've been shooting weddings now for about 7 years full-time. And the majority of the time of me doing this have always been solo. I take more of like a hybrid solo approach now, which means instead of having a second shooter on the wedding day, I have an assistant. Their main job is to make sure that the camera itself does not die, the camera itself is still recording. This way I can have kind of like that freedom to go around and get the shots that are really gonna tell the story. My approach to shooting a wedding solo. So what I do, doesn't matter if I solo shoot or not, I always show up the day before the wedding. You can message me and ask me why I do that. I don't get paid to show up the day before the wedding. I do it strictly on my own, really just to get to know the bridal party, the family, they can get to know me, this and that. The biggest reason I show up on the rehearsal is to knock out all of my aerial footage. So I like to knock those out the day before, weather permitting. And I also go ahead and I knock out some like B-roll shots of, you know, the beach, the location, really wherever I'm at. On the wedding day itself, I show up an hour before the bride begins hair and makeup to shoot my details. The reason why I do that is because I don't want to get in the way of the photographer's timeline, this and that. I'd rather knock my stuff out first. One, I'm going to have 100% control of what it looks like. Two, I don't have to deal with someone shooting over my shoulder or vice versa. When it comes to equipment, I have two Panasonic GH5s. One I have on a 70-200 with a monopod. The other one I have on my gimbal with an 18-35. Whenever I shoot outside, I actually have ND filters that I use with both cameras. A lot of people will crank their shutter and stuff like that. I personally don't like to do that. When it comes down to the traditional stuff, the ceremony, speeches, stuff like that, I have two Panasonic GH4s that I also use. I'll post a little picture right here, like a behind the scenes type thing that I think the planner took. Ocracoke style, by the way. So if you ever shoot an Ocracoke, they're amazing, Ocracoke style. So David took these photos, and you can actually see my two cameras kind of right there. One GH4 is on a 100-300 lens, which is a tripod underneath it. The other GH4 is on a 35mm lens. One is capturing a medium or close-up shot. The other lens is capturing more of a wide or medium wide shot. This way I can cut back and forth. Those are my safety angles. Those are the angles I can always cut to and this and that. On the GH5s, I'm shooting 4K 60. Profile is going to be Cinelike D, the factory settings. If it's not broken, don't fix it. Off to the side, I also have, you can't see this one, I also have just a GoPro set up on a light stand. That GoPro is what I call my just in case angle. Just in case I forget to hit record, something always happens at a wedding. In case I forget to hit record, or if I am not recording soon enough or something like that, I can rely on that GoPro at least as a wide angle, so I can like cut to and from it really quick if I need to. But it's a just in case angle, so kind of keep that in mind. In terms of audio, I have 3 Zoom H1Ns. What I do with those is I have the Groom laved up, I have the Officiant laved up, and then I also go ahead and I put one of those Zooms on a light stand and I point it directly in front of a speaker, whether it's a DJ or a band speaker. That is my ceremony setup. So it's pretty straightforward. That's how I can solo shoot. While I am walking around with my monopod to get those reaction shots and the detail shots during the ceremony, I'm constantly, whenever I walk by, I'm checking those 3 cameras that are set up in the back to make sure they're all still recording. Because sometimes a battery will die. You kind of want to be on your toes when it comes to stuff like that, especially if you're by yourself. Just constantly check. Before we check this out, if you haven't seen this video yet, here's the link to that video. You can pause this one, click on that, watch it, and then come back to this to kind of see the breakdown. The drone that I'm using is a Mavic Pro. Pretty simple, straightforward. And I'm actually shooting in 1080 with this Mavic Pro, 60 frames per second. I love the slow motion look. You're gonna see that with my work. You know, people troll me and stuff like that online, like, oh, all you do is slow motion. It just looks good to me. Anything in slow motion looks good. If you haven't checked out the slow-mo guys, check them out too. Everything in slow motion just looks cool to me. So we got that. This shot right here of the ceremony was done with the gimbal on the 18-35. So 18-35, all I'm doing is just walking kind of down the aisle. I'm not walking too far. I really just want to get, you know, 2 or 3 or 4 rows in just to really get that movement going on. I add a little bit of smoothing in post just to kind of really smooth it out. But it works out really well. These reaction shots paired with like wide angle shot right here, this is what makes people think that you have multiple shooters at a wedding. I always shoot for the edit. So I'm always thinking, how can I use this shot compared to the next shot I'm gonna use? The way I always look at it is always get a wide, a medium, and a close-up of the action that's going on. If you don't necessarily know what a jump cut is, if your viewer doesn't know what a jump cut is, mentally, it's gonna throw them off. You don't wanna throw the viewer off at all. You wanna keep them engaged the whole time. Even if it's just for a second, you don't want to throw them off. So, I shot this from the back, gimbal, and then I switched to my monopod. I actually captured the groom's reaction first. This little reaction shot right here of him just looking up at her, it was beautiful. And what I'm doing is I'm kind of behind the bridal party. I'm also not super close. On both these shots, I'm at 200. I'm zoomed all the way in. So, you know, kind of keep that in mind because you don't want to create 1, an eyesore, and then 2, a distraction to the couple. You don't want to do that. And a nice little detail shot of the dress. This is one of the first things I knock out when I show up on the wedding day. I typically show up about an hour before the bride sits down for hair and makeup. That's when I knock out all my details. So you'll see right here, this is a gimbal shot, 18-35. This ring is also gimbal 18-35. Knock out your details first. You don't have to fight the photographer over it. You don't have to, you know, take your time. You don't have to rush, that's what I mean. You can take your time through it, and if you show up more than an hour in advance, then you just have more time to shoot your details. So kind of keep that in mind, play with it if you want to. All this was gimbal. There is smoothing in post. You know, don't feel ashamed to use smoothing in post. You're not a bad person if you do it. You're not cheating. That tool was made for a reason. Don't rely on it. You want to make sure that you do get the smoothest shot possible. You know, in real life, for example, this shot, there's no smoothing at all in this shot. But this shot, there is smoothing in there. You can't really tell unless you really know what to look for. But there is smoothing on that shot. Since it was shot in 4K, I did punch in also to really get that ring detail. Let me move on to some more drone footage from the previous day, the rehearsal day. I actually saw this bird right here, this seagull, flying when I was shooting this shot. I don't know exactly where he's at. I always see people that are somehow able to capture drone shots of like wildlife and stuff like that. This would be a beautiful like close-up shot, especially like wings flapping too. It's just a really cool thing to see. So we move on from both of these drone shots, and then we have another detail shot from the rehearsal day. This was also shot on the gimbal, 18-35. Had a beautiful sunset. Then we move on to some bride prep. A nice little close-up of that. That was shot on the gimbal as well. And what I do is I tell the mom, hey mom, I'm gonna have you zip and unzip this dress about 3 or 4 times. Just kind of be prepared for that. I let the photographer know too, so that way they're not, you know, what the hell are you doing? I let them know that, you know, I am one person. I do need to capture multiple angles. I'm not gonna make you do it 20 times, but I am gonna make you do it a couple of times, especially if it's close little detail stuff like this. Plus, it's no effort at all for her to just unzip it. Hey, do that one more time, boom. This is where directing comes into play right here. What I did was I told them, hey, go ahead and grab a little part of the dress or the veil, and what we're gonna do is on 3, I want you guys to fluff it. And then I talked to Bridget. Bridget, when I say 3, what I want you to do is I want you to stop looking at me, and then as soon as I say 3, go ahead and look out the window. So Once I said 3, I don't say action, by the way. Once I said 3, they all fluffed the dress. She looked right out the window, and this is what we captured. And you just couldn't get more perfect than that. And guys, when I say perfect, I don't mean like my shot or my work or this or that. What I mean by is that moment in time right here. When you see like this genuine reaction right here, sure, we directed it. And when I say we, I mean like me and the whole bridal party. Sure, we directed that action, but that action created this really genuine moment that would not have happened if you did not step in and really create that moment. Then we move on to groom prep. The way I look at it, it's 80% bride, 20% groom. Obviously, the bride has probably been thinking about this day since birth. The groom probably just started thinking about it probably a couple weeks before he proposed. So with the groom, it's super easy. Tyler, for example, he just wore a suit, no vest or anything like that. His shoes didn't even have laces on it. So all I had to do was just like, you know, hey man, go ahead and take your shoes off, take your watch off, take your jacket off. And I had his dad help him into his jacket. And I warned him, I said, hey dad, look, I'm gonna have you, you know, put this jacket on your son, you know, 2 or 3 times, you know, so I can get some different angles of it. So the very first angle I always get is a nice wide or a medium of a gimbal shot. I love the movement. I love the movement of a gimbal. It really, you know, that's what I think makes my work stand out from other people's, is just the movement that I'm able to create. Once I nail that shot, I go ahead and I do the same thing with my monopod. And then a nice little genuine moment that I like to create is, what I'll do is I always say to the groom, for example, Tyler, hey Tyler, do me a favor. Once your dad has your jacket on, I want you to kind of turn around to your dad so he can help kind of like straighten you up. So, you know, when dad is straightening him up, what I do is I say, hey dad, do me a favor. He'll look at me 9 times out of 10. I say, hey, do me a favor, go ahead and look at your son really fast. Give him a big old dad hug for me. As soon as I say that, they both bust out laughing because I just said dad hug. But 2, it creates just a huge genuine moment. You know, father hugging his son on the wedding day. It's a badass photo for the photographer. It's a really good shot for you. So kind of push the couple along a little bit. Of course, bride and her dad walking down the aisle. That was a gimbal shot. I explained my setup earlier. So that GH4 that is on the 100 to 300, that is this camera angle right here. 60 frames per second. It matches up perfectly with the 4K 60, even though it's 1080. Because I'm exporting in 1080 24, by the way. So just kind of keep that in mind. The whole dad wiping the tear thing was total luck. Was not expecting that. That was amazing for me. But as far as like, how do you prepare for that? When I'm shooting with, you know, if I'm on the bride side shooting the groom, then what I'll do is, depending on the angle that I'm at, I'll shoot the groom really quick. I'll make sure I get a nice, you know, reaction or something I know I can use out of him. As soon as I get that, I immediately turn over to dad. If it's in the beginning of the ceremony, he's gonna still probably be smiling from just giving away his daughter. He's still gonna probably be wiping away a tear or whatever from giving away his daughter, stuff like that. So that's why I turned to dad really quick to make sure I capture that moment. And luckily he just happened to dot his I. So worked out really well. And this guys was that was the GH4, my safety angle. And then this was my monopod that I'll be using with the GH5. This little detail shot of the ceremony band. He's playing a violin. Maybe it's a fiddle. I don't know. But you know, him playing the violin, that was during the recessional. So after the ceremony was over and all the bridal party and the wedding party were, you know, leaving. So I don't need to capture cinematic shots of the recessional because I have 3 cameras rolling. Remember, I still have that GoPro and I still have the 2 other cameras that are still rolling. So no big deal. I can capture the stuff that's going to tell the story, which is going to be this shot. All-time favorite shot of the day was this one. This was during sunset. We brought the couple out to this beautiful pier location. I wanted a different location at first, but you know, me and the photographer, we did butt heads a little bit on it, but at the end of the day, we made it work. He got what he needed. I still was able to get some nice, beautiful footage, so I'm not worried about it at all. Right here, what I did was, I told Bridget, hey, you guys go ahead and chest to chest, look at each other. And Bridget, what I want you to do is on 3, I want you to go ahead and I want you to kind of take your hand and pull Tyler in for a nice kiss. Tyler, don't do anything. I want Bridget to do all the work. And you'll see right here. Clearly, she did all the work right there. That was with the gimbal, 18 to 35. And all I'm doing for the most part is I'm moving left and I'm moving right. I'll sometimes get them to do this twice because I can get one left, one right. Really just depends on the framing, what the last shot happened to be, stuff like that. Then we have this nice shot right here. Nice little cutaway. I'm not a huge fan of the color in this shot. The lighting in the back and the exposure was weird. I don't know what I did, you know, mentally or in camera right here, but I still was able to make it work, still make it look good with it. It's only, I think, a 2-second shot anyway, so it follows really well with that one. And then we go on to another gimbal shot right here of, you know, Tyler just looking at Bridget. Quick little smile. Last couple shot right here, just this beautiful, nice silhouette sunset shot, you know, really capturing the sunset in all of its glory, the location, the beach, stuff like that. I, of course, have the bride faced away from the wind because we want to make sure that we get that wind blowing the dress and her hair and stuff like that. Then I end it all off with a nice little detail shot, typically to end it with a drone, but I mean, this sunset and the gimbal shots were just too good to pass up, so I went ahead and just used that to kind of close it all off and kind of wrap that story up. Pretty much that's it, guys. I really hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions at all, by all means, feel free to message me, email me. I'll have my Facebook right here, my Instagram right here, and my website right here. That worked out really well. So, you know, I have all these 3 things right here that you guys can contact me on. I have people that contact me multiple times and they're always apologizing, like, hey man, sorry to bother you. Stuff like that doesn't bother me. You know, I'm honored that people want to reach out to me just based off the work that I'm posting, and it really means a lot to me personally. So by all means, feel free to keep on doing that. If you have any more questions about shooting a wedding solo, stuff like that, feel free to let me know. I'm gonna leave you guys with some really quick kind of advice for solo wedding filmmaking. What I would do is I would just mentally prepare for it. If you have to physically write down a shot list, feel free to do that. But don't feel like you need to stick to that shot list in order to make it work. Go with the flow, you know, ask the couple to do certain things, ask the bridal party to do certain things. Really just learn how to be a people person and direct. Another piece of advice would just be to slow down. The biggest thing I see nowadays all the time is we have unlimited digital recording time. You know, frame up that shot the way you want it, make sure it's nice and in focus. Once that's set, hit record and wait for that moment to happen. Don't do this whole record, boom, 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 because then at that point, you're just gonna be thinking about quantity over quality. You wanna make sure that you are getting more quality shots than throwaway shots. And if you're just running around with the camera recording the whole time, you're not being efficient, and you're honestly, it may seem like you're getting more footage, but in reality, you're just getting a lot of throwaway footage that you're not gonna use at all. That would be my biggest piece of advice. So, like I said, guys, if you have any questions at all for me, feel free to reach on out. Again, my name is Philip Benz. Other than that, cheers.